if you practice meditation and you practice consistently, and you just practice the basic mindfulness practice of paying attention to the breath and bringing your attention back to the breath every time it wanders, if that's all you do, yeah, that in and of itself will have a certain benefit to it, right? That's stress reduction. You will inevitably be less stressed if you practice doing that, because you're practicing being relaxed. You're practicing paying attention, and you're practicing not allowing the thought process to run the show. But what I'm saying is, okay, that's all well and good, but is that the end of it? Is that what this is about? What's the point? I mean, what is, if there is some result other than stress reduction that's being made available by practicing meditation, what is it? What is it? And how does the practice of meditation facilitate what that is? How does the practice of meditation facilitate a result that can be produced other than stress reduction? Because it really is important to get to the next step in terms of what you were saying. Yeah, the practice is the first step, and the practice is important, and it does help you to establish a certain sense of control, and it does help you to establish a way to reduce stress. So tell me about that. How does self-realization relate to what you're practicing? Yeah, because you see, when you're practicing meditation, the practice itself, you could say, and they do say, the practice itself is the practice of enlightenment. When you're practicing meditation, you are practicing enlightenment. You're practicing being enlightened when you're practicing meditation. So then what does the practice of meditation, if the practice of meditation is practicing being enlightened, how is that so? As it relates to self-realization, how is that so? Because the thing about it is that the voice in your head that you're talking about, right, the mind wandering, right, that's there all the time. That's there all the time. It would seem to make sense that if this is about self-realization, then what has to happen for you to experience self-realization is you have to stop being the character. You have to stop being the character that you think you are. You have to stop being the character that you think you are. So how does the character that you think you are get generated? Right? Because isn't that what these teachings? Huh? How does your mind generate the character? Thinking. Thinking is how people generate the idea that they have about who they are, right? If I ask you who you are, you're going to tell me what you think, don't you? You're going to tell me what you think, right? So then the question is what you think the truth? If I ask you who you are, you're going to tell me what you think. Then the question is what you think true? Right. So the question is who you are what you think? Is who you are who you think you are? Don't you think it's about time to answer that question? You know what I mean? If you're going to be in this world for whatever length of time you're going to be in this world, and you're going to have any success at all in living a human life, right? I should think the first thing you want to know is who you are, what you are. Doesn't that make sense? What you are. Isn't it amazing that we live in a world and we live in a society in which that question is not considered relevant? It's not considered relevant. Why is that? Why is it that who you and I really are and what really is the case as far as reality is concerned is not a question that is asked?
Well, people take it for granted.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not asked because it's not a question. You don't have to ask a question about a question that's not a question. So you're brought up in a society where that question is considered answered. You're brought up in a society where what is real and who you are is considered answered. that doesn't need to get asked. It's considered answered. So then the question becomes, if it's considered answered and it doesn't have to be asked, is the answer true? What does society say you are and what does society say is real? Okay, so society says that you are your personality, that you are your body, that you are the name that we give you, that you are the things you do in the world, like you said you're a mother. Right? Society says all that. Society says you're your body. Society says you're what you do in the world. Society says you're this personality, which is this concept, this idea about you. Society says that that's what you are. Is it true? When you're a baby, you are not said, oh, this is our version of reality. That's not what you learn in school, right? They don't say, oh, this is our version of reality. No, they say this is reality, and you are who we say you are, and you don't have any ability to question that, so you take it on. It's not even a question, you take it on. That's the beginning of the problem. You take it on and everybody else takes it on, and now we live in a world of people who are trying to be something that they're not. You take it on and everybody else takes it on, and now we're living in a world where everybody's trying to be something that they're not. No wonder it doesn't work. Well, if it's true that you're not who they said you were, if it's true that you're not a personality, if it's true that you're not a physical body, then how do you deal with that? Where do you go from there? What is true? How do you find out what's true? Is that whatever it is that you are, this is very important to understand. One thing that you can count on is whatever it is that you already are that, aren't you? This is very important. You may not know who you are, but whatever it is that you are that. Even if you don't know what it is, you still are that. Okay? Does that make sense? That's 30. Right? Therefore, it must be possible, even if you don't know who you are, even if you were given bad information about who you are, it must be possible for you to discover the truth about who you are because you already are that. You are that, right? Therefore, it makes sense to pay attention, right? Pay attention in terms of turning your attention inward, looking toward the source, looking at what you are, to see what you are instead of believing what you were told. Makes sense, right? Now we have something to use meditation for. Sit still, be quiet, discover if you didn't know it, discover that you have this thing called attention, right? Attention, that you can direct attention, you can direct where you put your attention, right? Now we're going to use that and turn that backwards and turn attention inward to look to see what's there. So what do you see? When you look inward to see what's looking, this gets a little complicated, right? When you look inward to see what's looking, what do you see?
Itself.
Consciousness, awareness, and self are the smart rat answers. I say that because you guys have been here for a while, so you know the answers to the questions, right? But really, what do you see? When you say you see consciousness, what do you see when you see consciousness? How do you know you're seeing consciousness? See who you are. If you turn your attention inward and look backward, right? The reason that nobody said much when I said, "What do you see?" is because the only honest answer is nothing, right? The only honest answer is nothing. In Douglas Harding's work, right? The no-face teachings, the no-head teachings. I mentioned that here, right? He has an exercise where he says, just point your finger toward what's looking at your finger. Point your finger at what's looking at your finger. And what's your finger pointing to? It's very important to slow down and pay attention to these questions, right? Because if you really do pay attention to these questions, what you'll discover is there is something in your seat. There is an awareness in your seat that is doing the hearing. There is an awareness in your seat that's doing the seeing. It's using the eyeballs, it's using the ears, but the ears don't hear. The eyeballs don't see. So then we're getting closer, right? We're getting closer to there is something that is alive in your chair that hears and sees and is aware. Is there not? Yeah, and it's not the physical eyeballs and it's not the ears. There's an awareness there that is seeing and hearing. And so we're getting closer to this experience, right? Because if I ask you what you see when you look to see who you are, the only true answer is nothing. But then I could follow that up and say then, okay, if it's nothing, then how do you know who you are? If what you see when you look to see who you are is nothing, then if it's nothing, what's that? How do you know who you are? Well, I've already answered that question because the answer is that you don't know who you are. That's why we're here. But if you did know who you are, and maybe you could discover that you do know who you are, if you're able to recognize that how you know who you are when you look to see who you are, right, is you're having the experience of being yourself, aren't you? Aren't you? You're having the experience of being who you are, right? So how do you know who you are? I am that. That's what Nisargadatta said, right? I am that. How do you know who you are? I'm being who I am. I can't see it. It doesn't have a form, right? So you could say it's not a thing, it's nothing, right? You could say it's awareness, it's consciousness, right? But now we're on to something. At least we have something that we can work with in terms of what is real and who we really are. And if we can establish that, and if we can begin to operate with that, maybe it will clear up a lot of the misunderstanding and a lot of the suffering and a lot of the conflict and a lot of the craziness that goes on in a world where people don't know who they are. The spiritual masters tell us, the spiritual teachers tell us, that's the problem here. That's why the world is the way it is. That's why people are killing each other. That's why people are crazy, right? Because they don't know who they are. They don't know what's real. That's called ignorance. That's called ignorance. And the purpose of traditional spiritual teaching, going all the way back to the beginning, is to bring an end to ignorance. And if you can bring an end to ignorance, if you can find out what the truth is, not learn it, not believe in it, not have faith in it, but find out for yourself directly what's true, right? You can begin to live in the real world. You can begin to live as what you actually are and live in the world as the world actually is. Then things might be workable. That's not hard to get, right? But that's not the way it is. You know, we're walking around in a world where everybody's living in a dream. Everybody's living in these ideas about things that aren't true. So it's not that easy, because even if you do the work and you do the practice of meditation and you learn what the teachings have to say, you still have to figure out a way to integrate that with the life you're leading, don't you? Yeah, you have to integrate that with the life you're leading. So there's a lot to this. There's a lot to this. But it's important because the essential understanding that can motivate you to deal with it, to do what you need to do to be awake and alive, the central understanding is that there's a very fundamental mistake that human beings make about who they are and about what's real. And you've made the same mistake. You had no choice about it. But now you can stop and take a look and see that maybe this is a mistake that needs to get corrected if you intend to be happy and to have a life that works. So that's what meditation can help with, but it requires practice and consistency, and it requires learning about the teachings that go with meditation so that you can use it to get beyond just stress reduction. You can use it to wake up and discover reality and discover who you really are. So that's what meditation is all about. That's why you're practicing. Stress reduction is all well and good. Nothing wrong with that. But given given the potential that meditation has, why stop there? Why stop there? Why not go all the way and really have meditation serve its purpose, which means that you can actually wake up and be happy and be able to relax, right? Have relationships that work, be satisfied, and discover a possibility that what is real and what exists is way beyond what you thought. Way beyond what you thought. Well, the thing is this. What you will discover and what will come to be seen clearly and what will make the difference is not getting out of thinking and not changing anything. This is important to keep coming back to because this is the essence of how it all works. It's not about controlling anything, changing anything, practicing something specific in terms of, trying to avoid getting stuck or getting lost. The only thing you have to do in order to be enlightened, the only thing you have to do in order to wake up and see things as they are and have the benefit of living in reality is to see things as they are. Doesn't that make sense? Yeah, I know you have a voice in your head, okay? So you have a voice in your head. So what this is about is being able to live with that instead of have that control your life. You follow me? This is about being able to live with that instead of having that control your life. So it's not just about bringing your attention back to the breath when you're practicing meditation. It's noticing that when you're in the world and when you're walking around and dealing with everything and that voice is running all the time, it's crazy. It's talking crazy. That's when you have to be paying attention, right? That's when you have to be paying attention. That's when it's important for you to realize that you're not the voice in your head. That's when it's important to realize that you don't have to do anything to try and control it except see it for what it is. If you try and control the mind will win. That's why Muji says, don't get into a street fight with your mind. If you try and control your mind will win. If you are able to be present to the mind and see the mind for what it is and not follow it, it will lose its domination of you. Because you're not identifying with it anymore. You're not following it anymore. You're paying attention to it. You're seeing it realistically. Right? And because that's the case, you stop letting it determine what you do. You stop letting it determine who you are. You stop letting it determine how to live your life. You start living your own life as the truth of yourself, which is awareness, not this character that you believe you are in your mind. In the end, what will happen if you follow this process to its final conclusion, you'll discover that you are your ego. The problem is you thought that's all you are. That's the problem. Right? So in the beginning we say you have to see that you're not that, right? Because you thought you were that, right? But after you see that you're not that, then we have to go through a process where you understand that in the end what you'll come to see, right, is that you are all there is. You are awareness, and the awareness is the ego because there is nothing else. So that's the cliff that I don't want to go off right now. But that's something that we can continue to talk about, right? Okay, have a good evening.